All right, time for the weekly outlook. Well, we have a roll gap. So I know a lot of people roll over on the day the volume flips over, but I always done it on the Monday, or rather the weekend going into the roll week. So we have triple witching this week, FOMC this week. Pretty hectic week. As we break out of a multi-week balance, right? So it's a lot of days above your freaking 50 day, which is kind of worrying, but we are, I mean, you can't deny the break, that we're breaking away from a multi-week balance, right? NQ like basically tested that high on Friday again, the most recent pivot high. So that's where we're at. We're one time framing up across all time frames, and we're gonna continue trading like that. And unless we start breaking below levels and establishing value below levels, I don't really think there's a reason to be short. Yeah, like until that happens. I mean, we have pretty clear lines in the sand, or should. The only issue, at least for me, is the roll gap. I guess we can look at Qs and QQQ and SPY for some levels and some other confluence, but I've always stuck to the levels on ES and NQ, the Russell. So we're gonna keep it like that. The only different thing, at least for this week, right, while the September contract is still up, is at least to start the week, I'm usually watching both ESU and ESZ. So with the roll gap, we're gonna have a gap up here. On the old one, we don't have a gap, but we kind of just open flat. So I'll be watching these prices on ESU, and by the end of the week, I'll go into I'll go into the December contract. That's just how I do it. Is it the most efficient way? Probably not, but it's worked for me, so that's the way I approach it. But anyway, all right, one time framing up across all time frames. The initial thought of the week, the initial idea for the week, is how do we establish value up against last week's uppermost distribution? We had we were basically one time framing up most of the week. Triple distribution, two main ones, upper end and the lower end on both ES and NQ. They look relatively the same, although NQ was relatively weak to start the week, and I think they had relative strength only on Friday. So we'll see if that trend can, or we'll see if that flips, and then maybe NQ Tech can have some strength. It was really only within Mag 7, so you'd have to take that into account. It wasn't your other tech names really running. So the initial focus, what do we do up against Friday's upper distribution, right? Do we establish value above and continue going, or do we fail? Or I don't want to say fail. I guess we can say fail to see an immediate continuation higher and see a little bit of a pullback down, maybe to clean up some poor structure here. I'll say this as a perma bull, as someone who only longs, I've been finding it really hard to be limit long with size at levels. I used to, be limit long all over the place as price came down into levels. I still do that, but I'm a little more cautious the last month or so, last 2 months. In that I haven't really necessarily been limit long, but I've been waiting for some more confirmation. Meaning, let's say for example we get a session that breaks down, regardless of what we react off of, I'm then going in after that session and saying, okay, what from this session can I use to now get long up against, right? So I don't necessarily need to bottom tick the thing. I have no interest in trying to do that at this point in the rally. So just take that into account. That's just sort of the way I've been doing it. Like, sure, we have levels lower, and I'm most definitely gonna look to attempt along there, but I'm in no hurry or rush to do so, if that makes any sense. So Yeah, you got uppermost distribution, small distribution in the middle, and two sessions overlapping here, right? That kind of overlapped with, or that established value above that multi-week balance, or at least where we spent most of the time and volume trading during that multi-week balance. So, any failure here, I would think that we rotate down towards that. This is like my line in the sand for buyers, right? If we want to keep this bull run going on a higher time frame. That's also where I believe your 20-day is sitting. And I'll be looking in that area for some potential longs, maybe some swing longs, but I am willing to wait for some confirmation. NQ, similar situation, right? Can we stay within Friday's distribution, Friday's balance, or how do we establish value up against this, right? Yeah, they have this middle distribution starting a little bit closer, and then the big one, the lower one, where we spent Monday, Tuesday, and some of Wednesday trading last week. And I think that's going to be my line in the sand for the near term. This is your prior all-time high, right, where this middle distribution starts. So, who knows? Yeah, I think I might try it if we start trading into that. We'd keep the one time framing up intact, right? We would keep the trend of higher lows intact. I think that's like the only place I'm really willing to try with size ahead of the Fed meeting, whether it happens Monday or Tuesday, right? And from a longer term, larger time frame perspective, it's been a little hard with NQ, especially looking at the composite. I know the last couple of outlooks, we sort of discussed this idea of this multi-week balance starting down in the 22,800s, going up to, I believe it was like 23,800. With these last, really 2 weeks, we've sort of established some more value up here, sort of extends us up here. But before it was sort of this one main balance here with three small balances within. Maybe have to group this into one and say, like, although this is the most recent area we spent some decent time consolidating, I do not like the idea of taking out some of these important pivot lows and probably breaking like a 20-day in the process. I would have to guess. No, not even. It's quite lower. I would be kind of worried with us at least breaking that trend in the near term. And once again, like, I don't think I need to be limit long, like lower. It's, if I miss out on the low and miss, let's say 100 points, 150, 200 points, like, I don't really mind. I'm okay coming in the next session saying, okay, what can I use up against this session? Realistically, like, this is probably what the profile looks like more, if anything, right? And then I can get long somewhere. I'll show you a great example, right? When I say that, we had an inside week here, and we got the breakdown of the inside week low, inside week high, right? During this session on this Monday, I did absolutely nothing. Yes, I took 2 scalps, but they were not with the intention of taking it 100, 200, 300 points. I knew my spot. We waited for this session to close and say, okay, like, maybe we can start to like get involved above these highs for at least a potential gap fill, right? And then maybe we can add our size once we trade back into that inside week low. And I felt no need to bottom tick this thing, right? This is the low at 23,000, right? We rip almost a 1,000 handles that week. But this is when I put on my size. Yeah, I took a loss here, but then once it reclaimed, really nice re-entry on this morning, right, to finally take it higher. So, I miss out on 400 points, but I really don't care. Is this, as long as I'm confident here, confident in my strategy, confident in the position I'm taking, like, I'd rather be doing that than, I don't want to say blindly, because I feel like some of you may have a strategy for getting long down here and catching it, but yeah, that's just not my cup of tea. I prefer to stick to my own cup of tea and say, okay, this is where I'm most confident, and this is where I'm going to get involved, right? Same thing, if we see some bit of a pullback this week, I'm going to take that same approach. With this being like the first big one that I want to see buyers hold. If not, I'm going to be cautious here, but understand that this is a key level. And if we can establish value back above it, I don't mind looking to get long up against it, right? To take it higher. In fact, that would be even better, right? When this applies for both sides. When buyers fail a move, a breakout, whether it's an inside day, inside week, some poor highs, whatever it may be, a little balance area, and then quickly fail back under, it creates a really, really nice opportunity for sellers, right, to catch a swift move back down and then traverse whatever we looked above. Same thing goes to the downside, which is one of my favorite plays, is looking below, failing a move to the downside, right? Like leave these series of weak lows. When sellers break that down but fail to see a continuation and let buyers get back into the range, this is when I get long. So failed breakdown, I take it any day. If I can see a failed breakdown or failed acceptance back below an area where I think sellers should take advantage of or try to, and fail this, I really absolutely love seeing that. So anyway, a little more ranty this week, but hopefully you guys took some tricks, tips, whatever you want to call them. The Russell, I got swing long on Friday. I also swung some TNA, some IWM calls. They relative strength, relative weakness on Friday, but you were in this multi-week balance here, establishing value higher, continuously establishing value higher, attempted a break away from value, and now pulling back to said value. So got a nice spike there, have a nice reference level, whether it's a spike base we want to watch or where volume starts to kick in, these kind of pivot highs we saw last week. So that's what I'm long up against. I have my stop at 90, but I wouldn't be surprised if it has to pull back here and then try to get long, right? So we'll see how this one long goes into the FOMC week. But I do like that play, at least up against this. Gold, I think there's some opportunities. We had an opportunity Thursday night where we shorted the back test of this 90s area, 94 to 96. Right, we had the week was really a balance. Sellers failed a continuation higher, attempted a breakdown back into value, failed, and then created a balance. So we shorted the upper end and tried to take it to the lower end. I covered some into the 70s, but I had to stop at 90 and it got taken out during the RTH session. But it's looking at it now, Sunday, we saw it trade full target, which unfortunately was not a part of anymore because I got stopped out, the runners. But I'll continue paying attention to this range. I played the bounce once. You could have played the rotation back up, or attempt at a rotation back up. It is getting a bit weak, this level up here, so I wouldn't be surprised if this has to maybe make some new highs, or at least attempt to. But for me, no play on it quite yet unless I see a clear sign of value being established outside of this range. So that is how I'll approach it, but at least no new trades in the near term, I don't think. Maybe a day or two. But that is my plan for this week. We'll take it day to day. As like I said, rollover week. I roll over going into the week. So here's my gap. But like I said, I'll be watching these levels on the September contracts. And it's sort of this, I'll have the September contract pulled up. So that's how I guess I'll approach it. Anyway, hope you all have a great week.